Hello, this is Mr. Stewart from Fossil Ridge Intermediate School's Math 7 team, and we are discussing today the 4.3 homework quiz titled Finding Solution Sets to Inequalities Using the Multiplicative Inverse. Yes, this is a very long title. It's very specific, and we might even add there we want to graph them afterward, but that's okay. So select the graph that represents the solution set, question number 1, to this inequality. And let me make one up. So I'll put W over something easy. 2, let's say, is greater than or equal to a negative 3.4. Now, there's some very specific things you'll want to know before you take this quiz. If you have not watched the 4.3 discussion, this will address some very specific things. Students that are skipping the discussions are often struggling tremendously with the quizzes. So we will have talked about this in class already, but there are some things you'll need to understand before you take this quiz. Hopefully this review will help you. Remember that equations and inequalities are very similar. The only difference is that inequalities have multiple solutions, and equations usually only have like a one single solution, or when you get to the older ages you'll see equations that have more than one solution, but linear equations, at least the ones we're working in the 7th grade, only have one solution, and that the inequalities really are going to just stay the same, right? So this is greater than or greater than or equal to. The big thing we need to do here is isolate the variable w. And how do we isolate the variable w is that we undo the operations around it. So if you were good in chapter 3.3 and chapter 3.4, you will be great in this one as well. So here's division. How do we undo division? By multiplying. So you're going to show that you're multiplying both sides by 2. I've got to keep it balanced. The 2's cancel out, and I'm left with w is greater than or equal to whatever negative 3.4 times 2 is, which happens to be a negative 6.8. Negative times a positive is a negative. So then it says, okay, what's the graph here? And yet I don't switch the direction. Some of you might be thinking, Mr. Stewart forgot something, but I didn't. You only switch the direction if you multiply or divide by a negative. Since I multiplied by a positive, there's no need to switch the direction. So now w is going to be strictly just larger than or equal to 6.8, or negative 6.8. So here's 0, here's a negative 6.8 all the way down here. So w can be something that's bigger than, is equal to 6.8, because that is implying equal to. And w could be anything that's also bigger than negative 6.8. Remember, larger than is always taking us this way in the direction of the number line. So this right here, my solution to this, is showing a graph. You'll want to match yours up with what you see here. Pay close attention to what these numbers are. These are negative whole numbers. These are decimals, okay? So make sure you watch that carefully. And we'll look at the next one. Okay, so here we go. So I'm anticipating this being one of the harder quizzes that you've encountered so far. Solve the inequality. Here's the inequality. Not the big of a deal. Oh, and it says write the solution in the blank. Be sure to include the variable b and the inequality symbols, greater than or less than, with the solution. So we want to make sure we do all of those things. And I'm going to make one up that's just super simple, just to kind of show something. Okay, so negative 2 is greater than, negative 2b is greater than a negative 10, I will say. Okay, so now here is where students might miss. Remember, we talked about this in class. If you're multiplying or dividing both sides of an inequality by a negative value, the direction of the inequality is going to change. The why that happens is not for this video. This video is just showing you that this happens, that you need to remember that. The why was taken care of in class and on the discussion board, the 4.3 discussion. So if you do not know why we changed the direction of the inequality when we multiply or divide by a negative number, that will be important to have you go back and watch the 4.3 discussion. For now, all I have to do is focus on undoing this multiplication. I undo multiplication with division. In algebra, we always use the fraction to show division. So I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 2. Got to keep it balanced here. A negative 2 divided by negative 2 goes away and b is left alone. Since I divided by a negative 2, the direction of the inequality changes. It doesn't become an equal to or anything like that. It just reverses. So now, instead of b being larger, it's going to be b is less than. And b is going to be less than whatever happens over here. So a negative 10 divided by negative 2 is a positive 5. So that means that in my case, b is less than a positive 5. Now yours is going to be different. You're going to want to type your answer down in here. And you're going to have to type it just like this, where b is less than 5. If you just put 5 here, that wouldn't be a solution to this inequality. Even if it was a solution, that would only be a single solution, and wouldn't be the entire solution set. So you need to write the inequality out using the variable, using the symbol, and using the value. And that will help you pass this quiz. Okay, same thing here. If you're looking at this is a 1/5 m is greater than 10. Notice there's no negative 1/5, so this time direction of the inequality isn't going to change. So I could make one up. 1/4 m is greater than, I don't know, 5, let's say. So I can think about this a few different ways. This can be written as an inequality of m over 4 is greater than 5. If you wanted to do it that way and multiply both sides by 4, that works. You could also just multiply by the reciprocal of 1/4, which is 4 over 1. Or you could divide both sides by 1/4. Either way, any one of those 3 ways will work just fine. If I multiply both sides by that, that's left alone. M is now larger than 5 times 4, which is 20 in my case. There you go. That would be my solution. The direction of the inequality doesn't change because although I am multiplying or dividing, I'm not multiplying or dividing by a negative. Last question, and this is a story problem, so I'll read it out loud, and it says that an SUV averages 16.5 miles per gallon. The maximum average number of miles that can be driven on a full tank of gas is 363 miles. Kind of makes you wonder why people drive around SUVs all the time, right? Select an inequality that represents the number of gallons in a tank. So as we're looking at this, there's some information that's important. 16.5 miles per gallon and a maximum average. So that means that it can hit this amount but can't go over that amount. A maximum average. Full tank of gas, 363. So this could be, you could get to 363 miles. So it could be equal to 363 miles. So if this is 0, here's 363 miles up here. The SUV could not go above 363. It could go up to 363. It could be less than 363. Like all of those things could be true. And now, so you're just wondering what would this be equal to. So just think about what 16.5 miles per gallon would mean to you. Hopefully this is helpful for you. And if you have any other questions, please come talk to us.